Long Island County, Nassau County, used to spend some time in Garden City, by the way, had a girlfriend from there. This county on Long Island has voted to allow first responders, police, firefighters, EMT, what have you, to sue protesters and set civil fines up to $50,000. I think it sounds like a leveling of the playing field. Now let's welcome Brian Sullivan. He is president at Nassau County Corrections Officers Benevolent Association. Brian, welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, sir. I appreciate you having me on this afternoon.
Well, I saw you in the CNN piece, and I was telling my listeners just a few minutes ago that it seems like fair play. What has it been like for you and your members over the past year, 18 months of essentially a great deal of disrespect being hurled, literally and figuratively, vocally and worse, at law enforcement?
Well, I'll tell you, it's been a heck of a road over the last year. I mean, no one in our position is ever gonna say that misconduct by any law enforcement officer should ever be tolerated. And you know, where all of this stuff started with the George Floyd thing, I think every law enforcement officer is going to disavow that and realize that never should have happened in the first place. Now, what this and the morale of my members, since I represent about, over 1,200 people, and the morale that's gone on since all of this stuff has been blown completely out of proportion, that all law enforcement is vilified for everything you do to defund the police, defund law enforcement stuff that's gone on. It's just been absurd. And I definitely agree with the characterization you just said, that it's a leveling of the playing field. Now, obviously, we had a very contentious hearing yesterday in the Nassau County Legislature because the proposed anti-discrimination human rights bill would provide civil remedies. These are not criminal reprisals. It's civil remedies for Nassau County law enforcement officers and first responders when they are harassed, menaced, or assaulted as defined in the penal law. And harassment is when you're in, to a level where you're in fear for your safety or your life, by people who engage in riotous or unlawful behavior. Now, unfortunately, several organizations and, righteous mainstream organizations were in attendance voicing opposition to this bill yesterday. We believe, due to the fact that the bill's intent wasn't necessarily made clear, that it only pertained to people engaging in unlawful behavior, not citizens that are engaging in righteous and peaceful protests. But what ended up happening yesterday is, unfortunately, is what happens in so many of these types of cases, is that also in attendance there were individuals that were intent on disparaging those of us in law enforcement. And, people whose only purpose in being there yesterday was to disrupt the hearings, prevent any kind of civil discourse. And they just wanted to throw the blanket of the hell with law enforcement, the hell with police. They didn't want to hear any conversation. And it was completely blown out of proportion about what exactly this thing was supposed to cover. Like I said in the beginning, nobody is going to take anything away from where all of this stuff started. But what's gone on since then, and the complete disparagement, and you've seen what's gone on in so many cities across the country where law enforcement has just been vilified, attacked, people have been shot. Law enforcement officers in New York City on bridges where there was people that were hit with rocks and stones and bricks. We can't allow this to go on. No. It's absolutely absurd. Organized violence or individual violence against law enforcement undermines the foundation of our society and prevents citizens from engaging in peaceful civil protest. And it's
there can be no self-government without self-control. Brian Sullivan, does the law that was passed in May of 19, so a couple years old now, it identifies first responders as a protected class. I like that move because without that, you would not be able to have these civil penalties now. We're going to talk about how those could be enforced in a second, but that law still stands as written, correct?
Correct, no doubt. And that's the whole idea. And there are those that say that and I'm sure there's going to be legal actions taken by certain organizations and stuff that organizations cannot be made a protected class. I disagree with that completely. If you're identified as something and you're being discriminated against, or your basic human rights are being violated, you should have every recourse to take civil action against people that think they can put their hands on you or threaten you or attack or assault you. It's just there has to be a leveling of the playing field. Otherwise, we're really going down a dangerous rabbit hole here in this country.
Agreed. Brian, does this also include online harassment of officers, first responders?
That can be classified under the penal law if there is a threat, if there are legitimate threats made there. Obviously, there's no physical threats that are made, but if that are being done online. But if there are actual threats on the internet, that has been defined in the law as harassment. If you fear for your safety or the safety of your family, if somebody gets your personal information, there's no reason why it shouldn't be.
Have you told? Is there any instructions to your rank and file how to document this?
I'm also the president of the union, so I represent these guys. I'm not just a lieutenant in the department. We've had numerous conversations with our members about what you can and can't say on social media, and that you should document anything and notify our department, our investigators immediately if you have any type of a threat made against you. And there have been instances where things sent, investigations were done.
But I'm not talking necessarily specifically about internet threats. I'm talking about anybody who's harassed on the street, injured, menaced, assaulted. Due to the status as a first responder, you would document that first, and then how are we going to pursue these people that assault cops?
Well, you can. What's actually part of this law is that the commissioner of police, specifically as labeled in this law, can direct the county attorney's office to begin civil proceedings. Anybody that's involved in this, you could begin a civil proceeding against someone once you have the evidence. But the one thing that I like about this new law is that you can begin civil proceedings directly through the county attorney's office as a county employee.
How do you respond to the ACLU essentially, or maybe I should say the New York Civil Liberties Union, say that it's unconstitutional because there's a presumption that unlawful conduct directed at police is motivated by hatred?
I think that's an absurd statement. That's a completely absurd statement. When you're talking about the basic human rights of anybody, how can you preclude the basic human rights and discriminatory acts that are taken against law enforcement officers that are given the responsibility of enforcing the laws of the state? It makes no sense to me that it's motivated by hate. It's an absurd statement.
Does the public, the general public in Nassau County support this?
It's, to my knowledge, yes. Actually, one of the local news stations here, there's a local cable news station that did a poll last night as this whole hearing was going on. And at the time, I don't know the scope of it, 86% of the people polled by our local Nassau County and Long Island news station said they were in favor of this legislation.
Yeah, 86%. I saw the video of last night's hearing, and it was raucous. There was a lot of disruption there, that's for sure.
There was a lot of disruption by people that were not there to have, like I said, a civil discourse or a civil conversation about it. These were people that I think in many instances were planted there just to air their hatred against law enforcement, and it can't be tolerated. I
tell anybody who will listen, being loud doesn't mean you're right.
No doubt, no doubt. I've said that 100 times. You could be the loudest voice in the room, but you're not speaking for the entire populace.
Is the traffic still as abysmal as it was years ago in Garden City?
Oh my God, it's worse than it ever was. After we started opening up from COVID, we had so many people leave New York City that moved out here because they wanted to get out of the mess that is New York, with not just with the COVID stuff, because of all the crime and the disaster that's gone on in New York City. So many people moved out to Long Island. The traffic is worse than it's ever been.
This is years and years ago, but I had a friend of mine who lived in Garden City. I won't say I loved her, but I was very, very affectionate. I really thought she was terrific. It was the traffic that broke off the relationship. I couldn't get there from here.
Sorry to hear that.
It was just. I hate to say it wasn't worth it.
It's not. I'll tell you, I live 9 miles from where I work, from my office, and routinely in the morning it takes me an hour to get here.
It's good for my business.
It takes me an hour to get into New York City from where I am. I'm just south of Garden City. To take an hour to get 9 miles is absurd.
The radio business needs bad traffic. You realize that?
Keeps your ratings up. There you go. I understand.
Mr. Sullivan, continued success, sir. I hope this is not struck down. I think it's a good leveling of the playing field.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you giving me the time to be on.
Take care.